Hello, this is my birthday vlog from Gdynia currently. It is 2 weeks to my birthday still, however, I decided to celebrate with a super intense day trip to Gdynia, which is 4 hours by train. Gdynia is a town by the sea. I'll insert a clip with me showing you invisible ships in the night. To see the Witcher musical. And this video will probably be quite a lot about the Witcher musical. And then I'm going back to Warsaw on an overnight train, sleeping in my own place for like 2 hours, and then going to an exotic expo, like of different reptiles and bugs and stuff, because I live by a huge exposition hall. And I always wanted to go, but I've been missing it for like 2 years already. So I'll just go look at some bugs and do my best not to purchase any lizards or praying mantises, because I have experience with both and I love them both. So welcome. Hello, so I'm back in Warsaw in my room and I will be recording the review part of this video now. I will, however, put on some vlog footage from my trip over this because I took it and I want to use it. But if you listen, you'll get the review that you came here for. So Witcher musical premiered in Gdynia in a Teatr Muzyczny, musical theater there, on the 15th of September 2017. It was adapted and directed by Wojciech Kościelniak with music made by Piotr Dziubek. It's a play with a runtime of over 3 hours, to be exact 3 hours and 30 minutes, with an included break during which you can like eat a snack or something. It's fairly long, it's like 20 minutes long. And it is with an age rating of 15 plus. Like, you need to be at least 15 to be able to see this play, despite having kids, younger kids who play in this play. And there are like, ethical, I guess, questions about like kids participating in a play that's not suitable for kids, but I will put it at the back of the video. This musical is not sung through, meaning that there is both dialogue and songs on the stage. I'd say it's a somewhat even 50-50 split, and all the music is original, made for the show. However, there is such a thing as a jukebox musical, in which a musical takes pre-existing, usually pop songs, and fits them in the story. For example, like the Help Beatles musical, or just the one where there's like Hey Jude and stuff, the Beatles musical, or American Idiot, the Green Day musical, or Moulin Rouge also is a jukebox musical. And fun fact, I think Singing in the Rain for a large part, or for some part, was as well, to be verified. But if you know Witcher stories, this feels story-wise like a jukebox musical, because this musical follows not like a one story beat, but takes from different Witcher stories and puts them and fits them into a larger narrative, but it has a very episodic nature. It's kind of actually going in retrospective, going back and back and back. It's not confusing when you're there. However, there is quite a lot of messing with the timeline, and in order to not be confused, so that the audience is not confused, they actually put very big sign, like for example Brokilon 7 years ago, they project it onto a screen so that it's visible to everybody, because without these subtitles it would be I think impossible, especially for people who don't know the stories, to really follow the story along. And speaking of subtitles, the show is subtitled in English, so you can enjoy it. However, I'd say that the actors go at least 5% off script, just reacting to the audience and just putting in some jokes that are more fresh and more politically relevant. I can remember 2 in the show. I don't think it really changes the experience much, but it is something that happens. And in general, speaking about the show being modernized, when I saw pictures, older pictures, or I think like a bootleg footage from a song filmed on an earlier production, it seems to me that there are some changes being implemented. So the musical is not really being reworked, however, certain, especially visual aspects of it, are being improved. So let's move on to the visual aspect of it. I bought this book. I thought it was a program actually with like lyrics and stuff, but no. This book, which is very beautifully printed, this is like an embossed, or you can feel it. It's like 3D. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't have a word for it. It's actually a kind of like a guide through the play where you can see different characters, and actually a lot of the casting did not change from the first screen. A lot of them are the same in their costumes. Some of the costumes were tweaked a little bit since this is Jaskier, who is obviously the best visually speaking. It was not really too much improved. I will be putting pictures of actors and actresses when it's relevant on screen, so you will be able to see a little bit better pictures. Also, I will put a link to the music theater gallery of these pictures so that you'll be able to go and browse them at your leisure if you prefer it like that. But speaking of aesthetics, I had the pleasure, and it's relevant, I swear, I had the pleasure of seeing Hamilton live, and to be honest, I think it's just the peak, the absolute best that the musical can get in every other way. It is of its time, meaning 2016, and sensibilities and what's appropriate or not, especially in the sense of color conscious casting, I know has changed, and some people of color feel very strongly about it, some don't, so that's something that's to be taken into account. But when it comes to this as a piece of music and also stage arrangement, it's actually perfect to me. But it's very stripped down and very cohesive visually, with tones of brown being a huge thing, both in costumes and in scenography, which is very simple. And actually Witcher, I don't really think that they took from Hamilton directly. I don't really believe that, but has a similar kind of scenography where the scene for the large part is actually just empty, with several props being brought in when it is relevant, like huge jars or chairs or something, but there is not really a lot of set building going on, which is done so because the show, well, it has music and dialogue, but a huge part of it is also dancing, and I'll speak about dancing in a little while. But in general, visually, the scene is just, the stage is not crowded. They are working so that the stage is not crowded, so it is visually pleasing to look at. There are several projected images that have the function of set, and frankly, they were the worst part about the set. Just those projections, those images broadcast on the walls or some screens. I don't really like that. The costumes, as I'm sure you noticed, share the similar beige and light white and like dirtied color palette, which really suits the show. But because of that, the characters who are dressed otherwise, for example, Duny is dressed, the costume has changed since then. He's more naked. So Duny is dressed in brown, and it really sets him apart. Also, Yennefer at some point has like a black frock over her white dress, which is kind of jarring. And my point is that while the aesthetic is cohesive, they try to set certain characters apart by having them dress a different color, but it's not really working all that well. It's more jarring, and I don't think in a way that works too well. However, speaking about changes of set, a part of the story takes place in Brokilon Forest, and all the dryads, all the witch or the forest ladies are dressed in darker browns and shades of green, and the set changes quite a lot. That segment stands out but also is cohesive visually within itself. So that visually it's a pretty good thing. Now let's move on to story. I will mention that the show follows a lot of plot points that from the season 1 of The Witcher. To be honest, a lot of them are in the show. I'm not going to tell you the resolution of them, but I'll just mention that there is the story of the Djinn. There is the story of Ciri, Yennefer, Geralt, and Jaskier, Queen Calanthe, and Juni as well. Just the basics. And now let's move on to the characters and in general acting. And after that, I'll just list the good point, like the strong points and weak points of the show. When it comes to characters, I think the star of the show, the obvious star of the show, was Yennefer. She was absolutely amazing in the show, but I mean, I am very partial to Yennefer as a character, and I think the actress Katarzyna Wojasińska made the character truly her own. She stayed in character all the time. She was just enchanting the actors. She was enchanting the audience and just bewitching us and making us fall in love with her, because that's her literal job, but she was good at it. I'd say also Jaskier was a highlight. I had the pleasure of seeing Jakob Bruchheiser as Jaskier. He was also pretty great. He also stayed in character all the time and was fully engaged. He sometimes serves the narrative function in the show, and he did that really well. I'm sure the Ciri that I saw is not in it. However, she was clearly, based on the claps that she received, the ovation that she received, she was clearly the audience's favorite. And I was actually, by the way, I was informed of this show, which I did not know about at all, by a very kind person who knew me from TikTok, and she works at the theater, and she mentioned that I should go see a weekend performance because Krzysztof Kowalski is the Witcher then, and Geralt then, and I really liked his performance. However, he did not he was really good. He was really good, but not as good as Jaskier and Yennefer were. Still very good in general. And Queen Calanthe and Juni were also pretty great performers. But now let me move on to, because the quality of performance is part of the either strong or weak points of the show, and now I just want to list them. So for the large part, I'd say the aesthetics and the visuals of the show are a plus. And I mentioned that the show is both dialogued and sung through. However, something that is paid huge attention to is choreography, which was made by Lydia Bargiel, and she did a great job because the cast, meaning the characters relevant to the show, I'd say are like a third or a fourth of the whole cast of actors on stage, because 3/4 of them, and it's a huge cast, are dancers. 3/4 of them are dancers, and that's why the stage is empty and just being refilled sometimes with props, because there is a lot of dance. For example, in Brokilon Forest, there are aerial dancers. The Djinn is being performed by 2 dancers, 2 acrobats attached at the hip. There's a lot of dancing. Also, there's a cast of children within the show who are great, by the way. They are definitely a plus side of it. They are really great performers who also do some little kid dance. Professional small kids dance acts. That's pretty cool to see as well. What else can I say? Well, and I think the huge plus of this show is that it exists, and it's a Witcher experience that you get to go and see, because I'd say with how huge the books, the games, and the show is, it's just nice to see a fresh perspective on the stories. I'd say those are books adaptations, so it's closest to the books, but it's a very nice thing to see, just a new to me fresh adaptation of The Witcher. When it comes to the weaker points of the musical, I'd say it's if you're a lover of the musical as a genre, you appreciate songs for their storytelling value, not only by their catchiness and whether they stay with you after the show. And frankly, I could not remember, but I am not a connoisseur of the genre, and I couldn't remember a single refrain from the show. I could not hum any tunes. I remembered the story beats that the songs hit, but I did not remember any of the lyrics. I still don't. I did not purchase a CD of the music because it didn't seem relevant. The only purpose that the CD for me would serve is to just re-listen to the music before doing this video, but alas, it would be a little bit of a waste of money because, as I said, the music is not that memorable. However, I remember the placement of every dancer within the song. I remember who sang what, and I remember the parts of the story that were sung. I remember better. So when it comes to musicality, as in, I remember it how you do with Hamilton songs. That doesn't work at all. But when it comes to a storytelling point of the music, it works very, very well. On the weaker points, as I mentioned, some costume choices I'd say were questionable because they stood out in a way that was just jarring. And I'd say even that Junie's spikes were not that bad. But for example, the black frock that Yennefer wore really did not fit the overall aesthetic of the show. It just, let's say that the whole cast is dressed in Bed Bath and Beyond, Bed Bath and Body Works. However, just like white sheets and things that could work as pillowcases. And the frock that was terrible was bought in H&M. So they were some weaker visually. And as I mentioned, I mentioned that the sonography was very utilitarian, and I mentioned some, I don't know whether those are weaker points, but like potentially problematic aspects. I'd say not many people in Poland would think that having children in a play that is for adults is necessarily bad, same as having children actors in the movies for adults is not bad, but I don't know, some people might be offended about it. I just thought I'd mention it because I checked that there are 3 different people, I think, responsible for taking care of the kids who play in the play, so they are being actually extra careful about the kids' well-being, and the kids seem to be having a blast. They looked like people the most happy to be on stage, and I'll get back to the happiness about being on stage. And the last thing is, I am assuming that I'm speaking for a large part to a non-Polish audience, so people who might be, especially Americans, might have some sort of different sensibilities. So I don't think Polish people would catch potentially insensitive aesthetics in Brokilon witches, and I don't think they are particularly insensitive. Okay, in the show, except for character wigs that Ciri and her family and Geralt are wearing, a lot of wigs are purposefully bad because the scenography is so temporary and being moved around. Some characters just put on a wig and become someone else, and the wigs are of poor quality. And when characters are playing the Brokilon women, the wigs are made actually of string, which could look like dreadlocks to some people, and I know that that's insensitive, but I wanted to point out that within the aesthetics of the show, it makes sense. But I thought I'd mention it because if you just see these pictures and you haven't seen the show, that might be the assumption that you make. But you can make your own decision about it. But I thought I'd mention it. I'm sorry if it was a miss. And the last weak point for me, because the sensitivity thing is not like really a weak point, it's just a questionable thing that some people might be offended about. But I did not see the best performance ever. That's the thing. Some characters like Jaskier or Yennefer or the kids had a lot of chemistry with the audience, but a lot of performers You could see it was not like the best day, but also the audience was not giving them a lot of encouragement. It was not the loudest ovations ever, but it's, you know, a vicious cycle, because you don't, I think the cast started it. They just were giving their 85% or their 90%, I'd say 85% of their best, and the audience sensed it, so they toned down the ovations and it just spiraled. And that does not mean that there was any particularly weak performance, but if you go to theater, often you just notice when the performers are having a great day or not. For example, I've been to see Aladdin the musical on Broadway, and everybody was having a great day except for Aladdin, whose voice was just tired and he was really just doing his job on the stage. But Genie, Jasmine, and others just made up for it. So to wrap things up, I do recommend this experience for Witcher fans, especially if they can handle a little camp and want to experience something other than the games or the show or the books, because it's a completely new thing, which is I think great. And I'm glad that I did that. And before I go, I'll mention that I went to this exotic animal exposition and I did not purchase a single animal. I am very proud of myself. I had multiple chameleons in my life. I didn't buy a new one. I'm very proud of myself. Also, there were amblypygas, I don't know how to say it in English, but those spider Scorpio animals that Professor Moody enacts the forbidden curses on in part 4 of Harry Potter. Those are real creatures. They are very rare in stores and in captivity, but they were available there. I did not purchase a single one. Feel free to feel proud. I was very close, like this close, to purchasing a praying mantis, a male praying mantis, which is with Latin name Wahlbergi, and naming it Mark Wahlberg. I almost bought it, but I didn't. But just imagine that this is Mark Wahlberg, the praying mantis. I still might go purchase an emotional support praying mantis. It would not be the worst thing that I have ever done, and I have the means to take care of it, but I also have Kira, who demands more. Never mind. No buying animals. Thank you for joining me on this possibly a little unhinged review. I know that I've been speaking really fast on it. Thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you enjoyed the footage or the way I talked or something. I will have different resources and links to ways that you can support Ukraine in my description box, as well as all my social media and a link to support me and Kira. And I'm also on TikTok. If you have not known that and you have TikTok, you can check me out there. If you're here from TikTok, welcome. Leave a comment. I would really appreciate knowing where you came from, or maybe tell me what you like or dislike already about the play. Thanks, cheers, and see you in the next video, which will possibly be the monthly book wrap-up. I have some pretty good books and some not so great ones, as per usual. Thank you and bye.
Hi, I'm going back on a sleeper train, which I think is pretty interesting. I love traveling by trains, and sleeper trains are my absolute favorite. The last time that I was on a sleeper train was, I think, like 6 to 8 years ago, so I thought I'll show you around. In a little room like this, there is space for 3 people. There, top, middle, and bottom bunk, which is mine. This is mine. You have a little thingy for your wallets and stuff. And by the feet you have a place to plug in for power, like your charger or something. Here you have a little light, which I think I have to make work here. This is kind of like a closet, because there are hangers there that you can attach. This you can pull off, attach to the bed, so that it's easier to climb to the top bunk. Top bunk is generally a pretty bad idea, because the ceiling is very low, and also you can really tell, this is a sloped ceiling, so the space here, like there, is shorter than my foot. So if you sleep on your back, then I don't know, you have to be curled up to be comfortable. So it just doesn't make sense to, if you have a choice, to sleep in the top bunk. There's also a space for luggage here. A mirror, like a cupboard and a mirror. This is my trash. But I have a complimentary sandwich, which is egg yolk cake, which is, I think, lovely. A moist towel and some antibacterial wipes. There is also a sink. Well, there is a table. There are no chairs because there is no space. But the table is also a sink. It looks like a toilet, but it's actually a sink with running water to brush your teeth and stuff, which is awfully convenient. I already used the toilet, so I'm just going to brush my teeth, change into my pajamas and go to sleep. So good night and see you tomorrow. I'm so excited. I just love sleeper trains. I just heard somebody shouting, so we're actually going to drive. Oh, it's so great. Oh, by the way, the conductor, who's a very lovely lady, told me to lock myself in with the chain like this. And also I thought I'd mention that the compartments in a sleeper train are organized by gender. So I am in the women's compartment, but I'm traveling by myself. There's nobody else here. And I don't think anybody will join because my station is the only one on the way to Warsaw, but the whole trip is from Gdańsk or Gdynia, whatever, generally north of Poland by the sea. And in the morning, I don't know, 8ish, 9ish, it's in Krakow, which is the very bottom down in the mountains. Krakow used to be a capital of Poland a long time ago. So I wish I could go the whole way, but alas, I have to be back in Warsaw because I have the Reptile Expo at 10 a.m. and then 6 hours of psychoanalysis, practical psychoanalysis classes. So, yeah. The beds are rather small. My feet touch the wall, and I have this much space, but it doesn't matter. I love it here.
Did I mention that it was my birthday video? I hope I did.